and welcome back to another Mugen masterclass. Today we are working on the letter B in the Sctrls. So it's not that many, thankfully, and this will be a quick video, I think. So we have BGPalFX, BindToParent, BindToRoot, and BindToTarget. So we're going to start with background palette. Same as PalFX, except this affects the palette of the background and life bars instead of the character. So to start off, I'm going to use Kung Fu Man's Light Punch to trigger it. We're going to add in the background PalFX. Pretty straightforward. Our trigger is going to be not time, which is the same as saying time equals 0. How long do we want this to last? For the sake of example, we'll go with 100 ticks. Or let's go with 120 ticks. That's 2 seconds. Now I get to add the color. 0, 0, 0. These are the regular color. There's no colors added, taken away, nothing. And remember, first is red, then green, and then blue. So let's say I want my background to be red, kind of reddish. Let's go at 128 and leave the others at 0, 0. So we're increasing the redness in the entire background. Do I want to invert it? No. How many colors do I want to limit it to? I'll use all 256 colors. Again, I've never changed this value because I love colors. Colors are like the most amazing thing in the world. You know, your ability to see is the most amazing thing in the world, along with your other 5 senses. So I'm leaving this to that. Ignore hit pause. I'm going to set this on to 1. What this does, if you didn't know, is it ignores this value. So normally when you hit something, it'll pause for 8 ticks and then these things will take effect. However, if you have ignore hit pause equals 1, it ignores this and just goes right away. Even if it's a not time trigger like this, hit pause can still affect it. So we'll go with this for now, and the background should turn red. Look at that, red background. Characters are fine, life bar is fine. And all I did was increase the red. Now if I increase the green and the blue, this should make the whole background whiter. And then I also have negative values. So if I put negatives, like a negative red, I should have like a teal color, I think. That's like a really bright blue, but you get the point. So now I'm setting these back to 0. I've never used the multiplier thing for the colors, honestly, so I can't really say how this works. I imagine having it on 256, 256, 256 for everything is like saying you want 100% of whatever these colors are. And you know, if you don't want 100% of it, you can go down to whatever value in whatever color. That's how I take it as. I don't see a reason to use the multiplier because why change the multiplier when I could just change the value? And the syn add is like sine wave. I've showed this in the last videos for the all PalFX. I'll show it again for this one. If I want the screen to fade to white, I would put a high value number here, and my my time for the the time for the transition has to be double of this. So that would be 240. So now my screen's gonna slowly fade to white, then slowly fade back to normal. And if I wanted to go black, I would put negative numbers. Pretty straightforward, I think. If you wanted to have it very seizure-esque, you could put this to a smaller number within this number. So 120 divided by 10 is 12, right? And that's pretty much 12 times the sine wave is going to go up and down, up and down. So seizure warning. If you are not good with flashing colors look away. I'm not going to do that again, but that's how that works in case you want that effect. And that is your background PalFX. Pretty straightforward. Next is your BindToParent. If the player is a helper, binds the player to a specific position relative to the parent. Now, player and player types is deprecated. It's not used anymore in Mugen, but your helper can still have a player type. It's ignored in Mugen 1.1, and I assume Eichmann it's ignored also. But BindToParent and BindToRoot only work for helpers. It does not work on the player because the player is the root and the helper. You can't bind the player to itself. So what I've done is I used a couple helpers. I made a couple helpers. I have Woodchan here helping us. So Woodchan is going to BindToParent. Facing 0, which means it'll face whatever the parent's facing, and the position 0, 0. 0, 0 is the access. It's when it spawns in at 0 time, it's going to bind, and it's going to bind for infinite time. So now, when I do my low kick, Woodchan is going to bind right there. And because the bind time is -1, Woodchan is just going to stay with me wherever I go, because I am the parent now. On the flip side, if you wanted to BindToRoot, BindToRoot works the exact same way. Same thing. You have a helper, you have a stake number, an ID, and all that stuff, and then your BindToRoot is this. Now, what's the difference? They look the exact same, they function the exact way. So what is the difference? The difference is the root is the player, and the player makes a helper. The helper is, the helper is going to have the player as a parent. If the helper makes a helper, the first helper is the parent to the second helper. But all the helpers, all of their roots are still the main player. So it's Kung Fu Man, regardless. So if I make this helper, and that helper makes another helper, those two helpers will refer to me, Kung Fu Man, as the root. But the second helper is going to refer to the first helper as the parent. That's called nesting. Basically, when a helper makes a helper, that's nesting, because each of them are relative to the other one previously. You could use both interchangeably, depending on what you want to do. But if you have a nest of helpers and you want to refer back to the player, you would use a BindToRoot. If you have a helper that wants to bind to another helper, you can use BindToParent. Lastly, we are going over BindToTarget. Binds a player to a specified position relative to the specified target. Now, long story short, you do not have a target until you hit the enemy player. And to show that, I have a little display to clipboard thing down here that says target 0. I do not have a target. When I hit the other person, my target's set to 1. I have a target now. But now I don't, because the target only lasts as long as the hit time in your hit def lasts, which I'll show you right here. Ground hit time. This is how long I have him as a target. So what I did, for example, was I made the heavy punch hit time 100. So I have him as a target for 100 ticks. And my BindToTarget is when I hit him, the player, the root, is going to bind to player 2 at his foot position 0, 0. -1 means any target. If I hit anybody, they become a target. So it's any target I hit for infinite time. And I have a change state changing me back here. I also, for the sake of this example, which I've never used BindToTarget, I've never had a reason to use BindToTarget. It's the other way around, binding the target to you, but I've never had a reason to bind myself to the target. Maybe if I wanted to do like a Chaozu self-destruct explosion back thing or whatever. But so now let me show you the heavy punch. Heavy punch is going to make me turn into a piece of wood, Chen, and I'm going to bind to player 2's foot. But this is only temporarily, of course. It's only bound for that split second. Not fully sure why that negative time didn't work. Either way, I'm still in an attack state, so that's why he's guarding like that. And now back to normal. So now the reason you have foot, mid, and head position, right? So all of that, you can reposition anyhow you like, but these positions, foot, mid, head, are relative to your sizing right here. Because for your size, you have a head position and mid position. So looking at your sprites, your foot position is always axis 0, 0. Your mid position is whatever the middle of your character is. In this case, if I zoom out and put the cursor here, if you look to the bottom left, it says -2, -60. That would be his mid position. And if I go to the head, -88 would be his head position. And I would change this accordingly. This is what Elecbyte put, so I'm leaving these values there. But that's how you would bind to a target based on their body thing. So this way, if your character is tall, your head position is guaranteed to be up there. You know, instead of you guessing a value of where something would be, doing that would just always guarantee it. So to further example it, let's go with head. So now when I hit him, I'll turn to a piece of wood and I'll be attached to Kung Fu Man's head. Now if I try it on mid, I should be attached to his abdominal or his midsection. I think that's too high, but I mean, it's whatever the default is. You should ideally change the positions based on your character. A lot of people don't. It's laziness or it's just not knowing what it does. But ideally, you should do that in case something like this is used, just for alignment and everything else. Now, that's it for the B words. That's pretty straightforward, you know, just 4 quick things. One thing I will show you, you can use target bind for like a split second. Target bind normally does not work outside of custom states, but you can use it here if you want to put them in a position. So I'm going to take off my bind to target, remove my anim, remove this, and put this back to how it was. And now using a target bind, and I'll get to this much further down the line when I get to the T letters. Since his hit time is 100, he's going to be hit stun for 100 ticks. I'm going to bind him. Let's say I want to hit him and bind him above me, in front of me, 100. Yeah. So he'll be he'll be in front of me and slightly up in the air when I hit him. Now I cannot use multiples. The bind is working good because it's, you know, it's a time-based thing, so he's still a target for a little bit longer than I think. But it's used to position him. Like I've never used this like this, but it's something I noticed that I thought was pretty cool and worth mentioning. So if you want to hit him with an attack and sort of set him in a position for a follow-up attack, you could use something like this. Let me see something actually. Let's try this. Bind move hit equals 1. This may bind him forever in this position. Yeah. Until he recovers from that 100 ticks, he's literally bound to me. Yep. Let's see if I can do a another target bind. I probably cannot do multiple target binds, more or less because the triggers. It's all about the triggers, animations, and all that stuff. Equal 0 and try there. -1. Actually, let's try 20, 20, 20, 80. So at the first he'll be 80 pixels away. Next he'll be at the first he'll be 40 pixels away. Then 80 pixels away at 20 ticks. I don't know if this will work. It probably won't. Yeah, now it just doesn't really do anything. But that's that's how goofy it is. When they're in a custom state, you pretty much have them in the hurt state forever, and you can use multiple target binds to position them for throws and everything. When used like this singly for a hit def, you can pretty much set them up for a follow-up attack. You know, I could probably set the, let's say I want to bind him there for like 1 tick, right? So he'll just snap to the position and he's mine after that. Okay, he snapped, but then see him moving back is the slide with the ground slide velocity and all that stuff. So you have to mess with this, but this is not something normally used in the attack. I'm just showing it to you as a means of showing it to you. You could do this if you need to. You would just have to play with the ground velocities and slide times and everything else for the hit def. Thanks for watching. Next video coming soon.